I never imagined that bathing a paralyzed millionaire would lead to a life-changing love affair. I will never forget the day everything fell apart. The tension in the air was thick, almost electric. I could feel my heart racing, pounding against my chest like a wild drum. That morning, I had received a call from an agency. They needed someone to assist Mr. Sterling, a renowned billionaire who had lost everything in an accident. His wealth, his success, and now, his ability to move. I felt a rush of fear and curiosity. How could I be of service to a man like him? When I first stepped into his luxurious estate, it was like walking into a different world. Marble floors gleamed under the soft morning light, and towering ceilings made me feel small and insignificant. I was met by an array of scents: crisp linen, hints of expensive cologne, and underlying notes of loneliness. Standing before me was a man encased in silence, trapped inside a body that wouldn't respond. His eyes, alive and filled with a haunting sadness, felt like they bore the weight of the world. He looked regal and yet so vulnerable, lying in an extravagant bed surrounded by plush pillows and expensive decor. I could see the faint tremor in his hands, a stark contrast to his otherwise polished appearance. This was not just a job, it was a challenge. As I approached, my hands trembled. How could I possibly care for someone like Mr. Sterling? His gaze was penetrating, considering, almost assessing me. The raw vulnerability in his eyes struck me. I wanted to reach out, to show him he wasn't alone. I filled the tub with warm water, the steam rising like an ethereal mist. He watched me with a mix of curiosity and guarded hope. I felt the weight of his trust resting heavily on my shoulders. As I gently lowered him into the tub, the water enveloped him. It was intimate, surreal. Every splash echoed in the quietness of the room. I couldn't help but notice how the water glistened on his skin, contrasting with the starkness of his reality. Each moment felt loaded with unspoken words. Then, in an instant, everything shifted. His gaze lingered on me, piercing through my defenses. I was no longer just a caregiver. I was a lifeline. I could almost hear the unseen heartbeat between us, pulsing with uncharted possibilities. But just as I began to think about the depths of our connection, the door swung open. A delicate figure stepped in, her presence filled with alarming authority. "Get away from him!" she snapped, her voice sharp as glass. She was stunning, yet the icy nature of her interruption sent a chill through the air. I felt as if I had violated an unseen barrier. Mr. Sterling's eyes darted between us, confusion etched across his face. What did she mean? Who was she? I stood frozen, my chest tight, a lump in my throat. The moment hung suspended as silence crashed down around us. I was on the verge of something big, something beautiful, and just like that, it shattered into uncertainty. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The tension crackled and buzzed in the air, wrapping around us like a smothering blanket. I felt my insides twist uncomfortably as the woman's angry gaze pierced through me. I could almost hear the questions forming silently in Mr. Sterling's mind. Who is she? Why is she here? I had no answers for either of us. Mar. Sterling, she began, her tone laced with an authority that brooked no argument. You shouldn't be exposed to someone like this. The disdain dripped from her words, and I felt my cheeks flush with embarrassment. I wanted to refute her claim, to defend the sacred bond that was just blossoming between us. But how could I, against a wall of such certainty? Jessica, I was just getting a bath, Mr. Sterling murmured, his voice low, gaining strength from the space between us. It was so vulnerable, yet so unapologetic. The sound reverberated through the air, anchoring me to the moment. "Don't call her by name," she snapped, turning her icy stare to him. "She's a nobody. You deserve better than this." Her words stung deeper than I anticipated. It was as if she were trying to erase me from this space entirely, and in her eyes, I saw the reflection of my fears laid bare. What am I doing here? I thought. Do I belong? But here was Mr. Sterling, fighting back against her intrusiveness. He was still the man beneath the layers of fortune and fame, still the tender soul I was beginning to know. I dared to not look away as he held her gaze. "That I just want to be treated like a person," he said firmly. "And she is helping me do that." The infusion of warmth in his voice felt like a fragile lifeline, wrapping around my heart and offering hope. Jessica's expression shifted, revealing a flicker of rage mixed with something more vulnerable, fear. Perhaps returning to the past that left him broken filled her with dread. "Don't forget who you are," she retorted, her voice dropping to a whisper, almost pleading. "If you lose yourself to her, I don't know how you'll come back from that." I stood there, my heart thrumming in my ears, fear mingling with something else, a burgeoning strength within myself. Who was she to dictate what connection meant to him? Each second felt like an eternity, but finally, I stepped forward. My voice trembled, but I spoke from my heart. "Mr. Sterling, your choice should be about your happiness, not mine. It may seem small, but in moments like these, it's valid. I might be just a caregiver, but I want to help you find joy again." I caught his gaze, feeling the electricity between us pulse like an unbreakable bond, both tender and feral. Something shifted behind his eyes, and for a moment, Jessica's anger gave way to uncertainty as she registered the weight of my words. "I'm here for you," I added, my voice softer, but loud enough to combat her disapproval. I could sense the possible rejection in the air, but I had to believe that he felt it too. "That I want that," he finally said, his voice barely above a whisper. The space between us crackled with emotion as he looked at Jessica, and I could see the resolve solidifying in him, like cement hardening within its mold. It was a powerful declaration that left no room for argument. The tension in the room shifted. With a flick of her wrist, Jessica stormed out as abruptly as she had arrived, leaving behind an air thick with confusion, need, and a semblance of clarity. "Are you okay?" I asked, still shaken but emboldened, inching closer to his side. My heart thumped loudly against my ribcage as I awaited his response. That he nodded, though a shadow of uncertainty still crossed his features. This isn't the first time I've had someone speak on my behalf. Jessica is my keeper, so to speak. She worries for me, but... I prodded gently. "I fear she wants to keep me caged, even as I try to spread my wings." His admission hung in the air, heavy yet resonating with truth. There was a brief silence before he added, "I thought this moment meant something. I thought you could see me for who I am beneath this shell." The weight of his honesty ignited a spark within me, and I reached for his hand, seeking that fragile connection. But just as the warmth of that moment began to radiate within me, I heard a sudden commotion outside the opulent room. A loud crash echoed from the foyer, followed by urgent voices, a cacophony that shattered our moment like glass falling to the floor. I glanced toward the sound, my stomach churning. What was that? He turned his head sharply in the direction of the noise, dread clouding his features. "I don't know. It doesn't sound good." Panic began to settle in, wrapping around me like the walls of this gilded cage, pressing, suffocating. "Stay here," he instructed, attempting to raise himself, though he winced with the effort. "No." I blurted, fear rippling through me. "I won't leave you alone." He looked at me, the intensity in his gaze flaring up like a flame struggling against the wind, then he nodded, but I saw the apprehension beneath. And in that moment, as uncertainty fell upon us like a storm cloud, I couldn't shake the feeling that everything was about to change. Our safe space now felt like a fragile fortress on the brink of collapse, where hope danced tantalizingly close yet remained so painfully out of reach. The noise in the foyer swelled, drowning out my racing thoughts as I stood rooted near Mr. Sterling. His vulnerability, laid bare in the wake of Jessica's departure, seemed to flare like a candle held against a brutal wind. The commotion outside created chaos in the fragility we had built, and Dread licked at my heels. "Please, stay close," he urged, his voice trembling as he struggled to find purchase on the edge of his chair. I rushed to his side, my fingers curling around his hand. "A lifeline for both of us, whatever it is, we'll face it together," I whispered, willing my heart to slow even as fear began to gnaw at the edges of my resolve. Just then, the door swung open violently, crashing against the wall with a force that made me jump. A figure rushed in, one I recognized immediately, though jitters coursed through me at the sight of him. It was Ethan, Mr. Sterling's business partner, his usually polished demeanor replaced with wild urgency. "There you are." Ethan gasped, worry etched deeply across his features. He locked eyes with Mr. Sterling, a mixture of relief and concern washing over him like a turbulent sea. "You need to." "I'm fine," Mr. Sterling interjected, the steel in his voice aiding his assertion, though the tremor of pain flickered underneath. "No, you're not." Ethan snapped, his voice pitched with panic. "There was an incident at the gala. We think someone." His breath hitched slightly, and I felt the uncertainty prick at my skin like needles. Mr. Sterling's grip tightened on my hand, a silent plea for reassurance. "What happened?" I demanded, though dread already filled the void within me. "They're trying to take you from us," Ethan continued, chest heaving as if he'd run a marathon. "I don't know who, but they're saying you're unfit to make decisions about your own life." A whirlwind of emotions whirled through me, the shadows of doubt creeping back in uninvited. They were targeting him, the heart that beat so fervently beneath the surface I had only just begun to discover. "What do you mean?" Mr. Sterling said, his eyes narrowing, and for a moment, I saw the determination return. "They can't take me anywhere." His tone had the commanding presence of the man he once was, the one that had been met with respect and admiration. "They've initiated a conservatorship claim," Ethan explained, urgency splattering his words, leading him to unfold the chaos like a paper map, crumpled and fraying at the edges. "They're arguing you lack the capacity to handle your affairs, and they want to appoint someone else, someone who doesn't have your best interests at heart." The anger simmering in Mr. Sterling's expression twisted into a grimace, and I felt a shudder run through my body. This was more than a setback, it was a threat to everything he was trying to rebuild, and my heart ached at the thought of him being ripped from our fragile connection. "It can't be that easy." He clenched his jaw, his resilience etched in each line of his face. "I won't let them demar." "Sterling!" I interjected, urgency igniting within me. "You can fight this. We can fight this together. I will help you." "It's too dangerous," Ethan said, his voice cutting through my determination. "We can't risk you getting involved, not if you want to protect your peace here." My pulse quickened, I was caught in the middle of their storm. "He deserves a voice," I asserted, seizing the courage that had recently begun to bloom. "He deserves to have a say in his life, in his happiness. It's not just about business or decisions, it's about him." Mr. Sterling looked at me with a glimmer of something fierce in his eyes, a melting warmth amid the surrounding chaos. "Stay with me," he pleaded, the sincerity of his request echoing through my ears. I felt an urgency rise in my chest, bound up with an inexplicable sense of hope. It wasn't just about his world anymore, it was ours, too. "No," Ethan insisted, visibly frustrated. "You shouldn't be dragged into this, it can turn ugly. There's a lot at stake, and you cannot risk everything you're building." The gravity of those words hung in the air like an unwieldy weight, as if they were shackles forged from fear and desperation. The burgeoning connection I felt with Mr. Sterling could become collateral damage, though I couldn't bear the thought of taking a step back. "I won't be a pawn in this game," Mr. Sterling interjected, pride igniting his voice, forceful enough to shift the atmosphere. "You both need to know I've made my choice." Before anyone could respond, my phone chimed, its shrill tone cutting through the tension. I fumbled for it, hoping to dull the chaos. A message from Jessica painted a foreboding image, the words slicing through my spirit with chilling clarity. "They have evidence against you. You need to leave before it's too late." The weight of her message felt like a crushing wave. Paralyzed by uncertainty, I turned wide-eyed toward Mr. Sterling and Ethan, my heart hammering with disbelief. What does she mean? Mr. Sterling's voice dropped, absorbing the impact of the words I barely grasped. "Two don't know," I stammered, dread pooling in my stomach like ice. Silence draped the room, thick and suffocating. Each heartbeat felt like a plea for truth. In that moment, I understood the churning turmoil weaving its way through our budding connection. The walls began closing in, redefining both our realities. As we stared into this unexpected abyss, where shadows danced and hope flickered dimly like a candle threatened by the storm, I couldn't shake the alarming realization: I had just stumbled into a world far more dangerous than I had ever imagined. And for both of us, the battle was just beginning. The weight of uncertainty pressed down on me, the ominous nature of Jessica's message twisting my insides into a knot of anxiety. I could feel Mr. Sterling's piercing gaze on me, searching for answers I didn't possess, a plea for clarity lost amid the chaos and fear swirling around us. "That I won't let them take you away," he declared, his voice steady, though I could hear the tremor beneath it. When I glanced at Ethan, he seemed to be wrestling with his own storm of emotions, torn between protecting his partner and navigating the waters of uncertainty that now engulfed us. "Together," I whispered, squeezing Mr. Sterling's hand tighter. "We can find out what they have. We'll face this head on." My heart raced, confidence battling against my apprehension. Somewhere deep within, a flicker of hope resisted the darkness. Ethan shook his head slightly, frustration etched across his face. "This is bigger than just us. Cooperate with them, at least for now. We need to buy time to figure things out." "But it's not just time we need," I responded, my voice rising slightly, charged by the urgency of Mr. Sterling's situation. "They can't just take away his rights because they think they know what's best for him." Ethan turned to Mr. Sterling. "You know that's not how this works. You need a plan, and right now everything is happening too fast to make rash decisions." I felt Mr. Sterling's grip on my hand tighten, a silent signal of solidarity in this storm. "I refuse to let them dictate my life. I want my voice to be heard, and that includes you," he said to me, his eyes glinting with stubborn resolve. The warmth of his touch ignited a flicker of strength within me, bolstering my own resolve. Just then, the phone in my pocket buzzed again, a sharp intrusion of reality. I hesitated before taking it out, a timid whisper of dread landing in my stomach as I saw another message from Jessica. "They have connections. You must act quickly. Trust no one." "What does she want?" Ethan's impatience began to seep into the room like a pungent fog. I hesitated, wondering whether to share the full message, fearing it might sow further discord. She thinks I should leave," I finally admitted, glancing at Mr. Sterling, gauging his reaction. His expression darkened, anger bubbling to the surface for a fleeting moment before deep concern took its place. "Leave where?" he demanded, the words bursting forth with an intensity that shook my very core. "That I don't know," I murmured. "She seems to believe staying here is a threat to both of us." "Why would she say that?" Mr. Sterling's voice was edged with frustration, a sharpness that held back a wave of vulnerability. "She doesn't care about either of us. If she did, she wouldn't have run away in the first place." "She's scared," I said softly, a pang of empathy threading through my chest. "And fear always sparks desperation. She's trying to protect herself. But this is about use. We can't let fear dictate our choices." Mr. Sterling nodded slowly, the spark of determination igniting brighter in his eyes. "Then we find a way, together." Ethan interrupted, pacing the small space, frustration warring with concern. "That's all well and good, but we need to tread carefully. We must gather evidence, something concrete about the claims against you before making any drastic moves. And we need to get you both safe." My heart raced at the thought of what lay ahead. Each moment felt fraught with danger, yet somehow, the air was flickering with possibility. I could feel the swell of solidarity between Mr. Sterling and me. Despite the clawing fear, I found clarity in the chaos we were in this together, and for the first time, it felt like I wasn't just on the periphery of his life, but part of something far more profound. "Let's make a plan," I said, the urgency of my voice echoing as I gave Mr. Sterling's hand one last reassuring squeeze. Before we could strategize further, there was a sudden knock at the door, sharp and insistent, reverberating through the air with an ominous energy. We exchanged tense looks, the tension in the room spiraling as we all understood that this moment could alter everything. Who is it? Ethan called, eyeing the door warily, tension strumming through his voice like a fragile string. Police. The voice boomed, authoritative yet heavy with a weight of disbelief that carried through the wood. My heart stopped, adrenaline coursed through my veins, pounding like a drum. I looked at Mr. Sterling and then back at Ethan, panic fueled by dread blooming within me. Do we open the door? I whispered, feeling the weight of the world crash around us. This was the looming precipice before the storm, and I could sense that whatever came through that door might shatter all the fragile hope we had begun to build, and in that charged silence, with every heartbeat echoing like a ticking clock, I realized we were on the brink of uncharted danger. The fight for Mr. Sterling's freedom had begun, and the stakes were perilously high. The heavy thud of my heart drowned out everything else as the silence stretched, taut like a bowstring ready to snap. I exchanged frantic glances with Mr. Sterling and Ethan, our collective anxiety palpable in the cramped space. The words police hovered in the air, menacing and heavy, amplifying the chaos swirling in my mind. Just a moment. Ethan called, his voice steady but frivolous against the suffocating fear that twisted inside me. He motioned for us to quiet down, his demeanor shifting from ally to strategist in a heartbeat. I could see the gears turning in his overburdened mind as he quickly formulated a plan. Listen, he said, his tone grave yet urgent. We need to be careful. Don't say too much. They might be looking for something to hold against you, Mr. Sterling. Just let me handle this. Mr. Sterling looked at me, his face a canvas of mixed emotions, fear interwoven with an unwavering determination, and I couldn't shake the feeling that we were sitting on the edge of an unthinkable chasm, one that threatened to pull us all in. Have you done anything wrong? I asked Mr. Sterling, a soft tremor in my voice as I tried to navigate the sudden flood of dread. Not that I know of, he replied, his voice low but laced with confidence. But that won't stop them from trying. Keep your cool, Ethan cautioned, no longer pacing but now standing squarely in front of the door, ready to embrace whatever storm lay on the other side. With shaky hands, I squeezed Mr. Sterling's once more, a silent promise echoing between us. No matter what, we would endure this together. I could feel his warmth enveloping my anxiety, grounding me despite the chaos that loomed. Open the door. Came the sharp shout from outside. We're coming in. Before Ethan could curse under his breath, I watched as he steadied himself and twisted the doorknob, slowly pulling it ajar to reveal two stern-looking officers. Their uniforms looked crisp, similar to the tension stamped upon their faces. My breath hitched as their steely gazes roamed over us like hawks scouting for prey. Mr. Sterling. One of them called out, eyes narrowing into slits as they zeroed in on him. Yes, he replied, his voice strong and unwavering, a stark contrast to the trembling heart beneath. I was in awe of his composure. That we need to speak with you regarding an investigation. The officer's words were clipped, void of empathy yet rich with expectation. May we come in? Ethan stepped protectively in front of Mr. Sterling, almost reflexively. Is there a warrant? He asked, his tone firm, adding a layer of defiance against the officer's authoritative presence. That in due time, the other officer interjected, glancing around the space as if searching for something more than just answers. I could sense his vigilance, his suspicion, as he analyzed our cramped sanctuary and its occupants, 3 souls wrapped up in turmoil, fear, and a desperate hope. Ethan's defiance faltered, as he calculated their intentions. Just give us a moment, he replied, his voice rife with hesitation. We need to discuss what this is about. Right now, this is about Mr. Sterling, replied the first officer, harshly cutting through Ethan's protective barrier. We're here because your name has come up in a serious matter, Mr. Sterling. That I felt the breath leave my lungs as the weight of the moment felt insurmountable. Panic clawed at my insides, igniting my instincts to run, yet I stood frozen beside Mr. Sterling, clutching onto his hand like a lifeline. What kind of serious matter? Mr. Sterling pressed, refusing to back down. His challenge echoed through the tension in the room, a testament to his inner strength. Even in the face of whatever lay ahead, it's about the accusations against you regarding your business practices, the officer replied, his eyes narrowing further. We have reason to believe that there may be some legitimacy to these claims." With each word, I felt the ground beneath me shift, like quicksand ready to swallow us whole. The gravity of what he was saying washed over me, and I could feel Mr. Sterling's hand tense up in mine, the resolve in his demeanor slightly chipped away by the weight of the officer's declaration. Ethan shot us a look, a mixture of alarm and fury. "You're making a mistake. You can't just barge in here without proof. We're merely following up on reports, Mr. Walker." The officer's tone had turned colder, his authority creeping into the fragile air around us. "We want to clarify some things." "Clarify? You mean accuse without any evidence?" I couldn't help but interject, my voice full of emotion. "You're creating a narrative based on mere whispers." The second officer, seemingly irritated, took a step forward. "We don't need to explain ourselves. Open the door fully, or we'll take action." That I felt like a small fish caught in a raging tide, with no sure way to swim against the current. And as their words muted the fleeting sparks of hope that had begun to weave through our hearts, I couldn't help but think of Jessica's warning echoing in my mind, "Trust no one." That in that moment, a thought screamed through my racing heart: if the police were here digging for dirt, what if they were not our only threat? The revelation pricked at the edges of my consciousness like a raw nerve. "Wait," I breathed out, my mind racing, trapped between a flicker of inspiration and an overwhelming surge of desperation. What if this isn't just an investigation about Mr. Sterling's life? What if they're investigating someone close to him? Ethan and Mr. Sterling exchanged worried glances, the air thickening with new tension. "What do you mean?" Ethan asked, alarmed. Jessica was frightened. "She warned us, and now it all feels connected. If they're here for him, what if they're hunting for her too?" My heart sank as the implications hit me. Could someone be using Mr. Sterling as bait against her? As panic flashed in Mr. Sterling's eyes, the door creaked open wider, the officers stepping inside as the grip of dread tightened around us. We were not only battling against the accusations, it felt like a dark tide was rising, ready to sweep us away in the night that I barely had time to process it all. The storm was brewing, and just when we thought we had prepared for it, an unexpected flash of fear flared within me. Just as Ethan opened his mouth to speak, the ominous sound of a phone ringing filled the space, a jarring reminder of the uncertainty that had come crashing down upon us, entangling us in a web of danger and secrets. And then, just as I grabbed Mr. Sterling's wrist, a thought struck me as cold as ice. What if Jessica's involvement, her reasons for running, were far more entangled than we'd imagined? Our reality was spiraling, inching closer to a cliff I never imagined we would teeter upon. The door trembled as it swung open wider, the oppressive presence of the officers swallowing the room in shadows. I could feel Mr. Sterling's pulse racing beneath my fingers, mirroring the rapid thrum of my thoughts as chaos brewed in my chest. The ringing phone suddenly felt like an omen, reverberating against the silence we found ourselves ensnared in. "Ma'am," one of the officers said, his gaze flicking toward me. "Step aside. This does not concern you." On the contrary, Ethan shot back, stepping forward, determination coiling like a spring. "If she's involved with Mr. Sterling, then it concerns her just as much. You can't just ignore that." I could sense the walls inching closer, and the officers shifted their weight, each second drawn out like a still frame from a nightmare. The air thickened with unspoken truths and the looming threat of betrayal. I felt a chill curl around my heart. If Jessica was entangled in this web, we needed to safeguard her, not just out of concern for her safety but as a lifeline for Mr. Sterling. "Please," I interjected, my voice less commanding than I'd hoped. "We all deserve a chance to understand what's happening." With a patient, almost pitying expression, one of the officers replied, "Miss, this is not a negotiation. Either you cooperate, or we will detain everyone in this room until we fulfill our purpose here." The urgency in their words swirled like fog around us, blurring the edges of reality as I latched onto Mr. Sterling, a desperate plea blooming in my heart. What if there's something more? What if someone is manipulating us, using your investigation to pursue their own agenda? Enough. An officer barked, eyes lighting up with frustration. "You're obstructing an official inquiry." Ethan opened his mouth, but I squeezed Mr. Sterling's hand tighter, begging him with my gaze. There was an unspoken acknowledgement between us. We had to keep it together, especially when the ground felt so uncertain beneath our feet. But fear was threatening to spill out of me like ink from a broken pen. What if Jessica was indeed entwined in something far darker? The phone's insistent ringing sliced through the standoff, reverberating off the walls, a constant reminder that time was of the essence. I caught a glimpse of Ethan, his expression morphing from defiance into a furrowed brow of contemplation. I could see the cogs in his mind turning, and suddenly, he plucked the phone from the table, his eyes darting to the screen. "Don't I?" started, realization dawning heavy on me, but it was too late. "That I need to take this," Ethan said, his voice a whisper wrapped in urgency. It could be important. The officers exchanged a look, but Ethan was already lifting the phone to his ear. "Jessica?" he asked, his voice straining. My heart leapt at the sound of her name, a flicker of hope igniting amidst the dread. "Ethan?" Her voice crackled through the connection, laced with panic. "I don't have much time. What's going on? Are you safe?" he asked sharply, urgency rising in his tone. "2 Don't know who to trust. They keep asking about you, about Mr. Sterling. They think I know something I don't." Her voice wavered, a tremor of desperation that struck me deeply. "You have to believe me." I was scared, but now I'm terrified. Before he could respond, the officers moved closer, and I could see one of them straining to hear both sides of the conversation. "Miss, you cannot hide behind phone calls," one officer interjected, using his authority to cut into the moment. "You can step forward and answer our questions directly." Ethan shot them a withering glare, trying to shield the conversation. "Jessica, are you okay? Where are you? Run!" she shouted suddenly, a chaos of panic and clarity in her voice. "They're not just here for Mr. Sterling. You don't understand. They're coming for you all. Someone is leading them straight to you." That statement froze time. The world around us blurred, and I felt my breath catch in my throat, a gasp battling against the growing dread spilling within me. The officers moved in closer, as if sensing the swell of danger. I could see the disbelief and alarm swelling in Mr. Sterling's expression as clarity washed over us, stark and concerning. "Jessica!" Ethan yelled, but the line went dead, an abrupt silence cascading through our panic. Suddenly, the officer reached for the phone. "That's enough. Well, trace that call," he declared, as he seized the device from Ethan's trembling hand. "Wait!" I cried out, desperate. If she's in trouble. The officer spared me a cold look, unfazed. "Especially in a case as serious as this, cooperation is key." "I'll cooperate," I said, my pulse racing. "But you must understand we're all in danger here. This isn't just about an investigation. Someone has planted this chaos on us. Demar." Sterling, still next to me, now gripped my hand tightly, as though sending a silent message that we would get through this. He turned to the officers, determination flickering in his eyes. "If you think you can intimidate us into silence or vulnerability, you're wrong. We will not be your pawns." Yet the storm was rising outside, thunder rumbling ominously as if reflecting the very turmoil shaking the foundation of our world. "Whoever is behind this has deep ties," one of the officers replied, shifting his weight, and as he spoke, a flicker of empathy touched his stern demeanor. "But there's always a chance we can protect you. We need all the information we can get if we're going to safeguard you from what's coming." As my heart raced, another thought whispered through my mind: if Jessica was in danger, we needed to act fast. But the stakes were higher than ever, and just as the tension reached a precipice, another voice broke through the haze swirling around us, a voice that would change everything. "Demar Sterling." A new figure stepped through the door, a familiar face stepping into the chaos. "I need to talk." Time froze again as the contours of this new arrival cut through the darkness, each heartbeat propelling the weight of uncertainty closer to the edge. "Claire." Mr. Sterling gasped, shock emblazoned across his face, as his eyes widened in disbelief. "What are you doing here?" The uneasy air expanded, thickening with yet another layer of complication and danger, the deeper mysteries unraveling in real time, leaving us all to consider: was Claire here to help, or to betray? The room bristled with tension as Claire's arrival shifted the balance of dread hanging over us. Her gaze met mine, and a rush of uncertainty coursed through me. Who was she in this tangled web of murky alliances and grave threats? Distant memories flashed in my mind, brief interactions and late-night conversations filled with laughter and shared dreams, now overshadowed by the present turmoil. Her presence seemed like a flickering candle in a night fraught with darkness. Mr. Sterling's shock was palpable, his grip on my hand tightening almost imperceptibly as if drawing strength from our shared moment of vulnerability. "What are you doing here, Claire?" His voice trembled, unraveling a thread of concern that resonated through the room. "That I came to warn you," she replied hastily, glancing at the officers who loomed ominously behind us. "I couldn't stay away. I thought I could help." That I studied her expression, trying to decipher this fragmented puzzle that was Claire. There was more than just urgency in her voice, there was fear edging out any semblance of composure. Not just for Mr. Sterling, but perhaps for herself as well. "Help? Help us how?" I pressed, a little too harshly, the uncertainty gnawing at my gut. "There's a leak," she breathed, her words rushed and heavy with meaning. "In the investigation. Someone close to you, closer than you think, he's feeding them information. I overheard some things at the firm that made me realize you're all in grave danger." Ethan stepped forward, his protective instincts flaring anew. "And you expect us to just trust you now?" He took a breath, eyes narrowing. "After everything, it's not about trust right now, it's about survival." She snapped back, her voice cracking with the weight of urgency. "I can help you understand what's happening. You have to believe me when I say that time is not on our side. What do you know?" Mr. Sterling's question hung in the air, a plea for clarity amid the chaos. Before Claire could answer, the officer supervising the situation shifted impatiently. "This is not a social gathering," he interjected in a tone that dripped with authority. "You will all be detained for further questioning." I felt Mr. Sterling's resolve falter for just a moment. "Wait," he said quietly, eyeing the officer closely, "if we're dealing with someone on the inside, wouldn't it be prudent to let us explain what we know?" Claire's sharp intake of breath told me she understood the weight of his words, she knew the implications masked within them. I could only hope the officers recognized the potential of aligning with us, however tenuous that alliance might be. Perhaps they could help us as much as we might help them uncover the truth, but only if they were willing to listen. The officer paused, uncertainty flickering in his eyes as the looming storm outside roared to life, rattling the very foundation of the building. The chaos mirrored our internal struggles, the uncertainty and fear clawing at us all, demanding to be acknowledged. "Miss," the officer gestured toward Claire, "if you really believe there's been a betrayal, it would concern all parties involved." "Then let us explain," I urged, stepping forward, driven by a surge of hope that perhaps we could create a rift in the encroaching darkness. "We need to expose whoever is orchestrating this, and time is running out." Claire nodded, a spark igniting in her eyes as she began to recount the snippets she had picked up at the firm, half-formed thoughts spilling from her mouth like broken pieces of a puzzle. "I heard them mention Mr. Sterling's dealings. They know more than they let on, and they plan to use that knowledge against you." With every word she spoke, the stakes rose, and I could feel a labyrinth of fear weaving its way through my chest. If there was indeed a leak, it meant betrayal was looming ever closer, weaving through the intimate corridors of trust we had unknowingly built. "Who?" Ethan pressed, each syllable imbued with urgency. "Who's behind this?" Claire swallowed hard, looking at us, her expression a mix of panic and determination. "I can't say for sure. I just glimpsed their faces in the boardroom. But the clues are there, and I know who they'll look to next. You need to be careful, you're all at risk." Suddenly, Mr. Sterling turned to me, eyes flickering with something unnamably a resolve, yet tinged with vulnerability. He reached out, his fingers brushing against my cheek, grounding me amid the storm swirling around us. "We'll survive this, no matter the cost," he whispered, though doubt hung heavily between us. The officers exchanged brief glances, their eyes narrowed in consideration, grappling with their next steps. The air was thick with uncertainty. Could we truly trust Claire, or was this another layer in a game we hadn't even begun to understand? With each second that ticked by, the weight of their decision felt impossibly heavy. Just as I thought, wed by some time, the tension broke as the officer barked sharp instructions. "We need to move. If there's going to be another attempt to breach, it won't be long before they strike again. That I and the shifting dark, I felt the ground beneath me tremble. My heartbeat quickened, dread painting every thought like an undulating wave. I never imagined this whirlwind of chaos would lead us here, tangled within so many layers of mistrust and desperation, and right as I thought it couldn't escalate further, Claire looked toward Mr. Sterling, tears welling in her eyes. "I'm so sorry," she said, her voice trembling. "But I think I might be the reason you're in danger. There's something I never told you, about the project and my ties to the firm." Her words hung in the air, a revelation set to unravel the fragile threads that connected us all, sending shockwaves through every heart present. What could it mean? The hope we clung to seemed to slip like sand through our fingers, replaced instead with fear as the door we thought would lead to clarity opened to reveal a far murkier truth. The room felt as though it were closing in, the walls pressing against us with an energy laden with uncertainty and secrecy. Claire's words overwhelmed me, each syllable threatening to reshape everything we thought we knew about ourselves and each other. My mind raced, searching for a way to comprehend the weight of her confession. Was she really the link that bound us to the impending doom she spoke of, or merely tangled in the web herself? I thought I could keep it from you," Claire continued, her voice wavering like a candle flame flickering in the darkness. "But I can't now. You deserve to know the whole truth." Mr. Sterling's tight grip on my hand slipped, his gaze locked onto Claire, searching for hidden meanings in her sorrowful eyes. The officer shifted uncomfortably, mirroring the unease that swept through the group. This was no longer a simple matter of trust, it had morphed into a tangled quagmire of connections that threatened to pull us all under. "Claire, just tell us what you mean," Ethan pressed, frustration coloring his tone. "We don't have time for half-truths. That I was part of the negotiations for the project before I left the firm. I thought moving away would help." She paused, the weight of her decisions reflected in her downcast gaze. "But I overheard some conversations before I left, and the implications hit too close to home. They're not just after the project, they want to take you down, destroy everything you've built." Each word cut deeper, splintering the fragile threads of hope we clung to, unraveling the notion that maybe we could pull together and fight back against this unseen adversary. My heart sank as Mr. Sterling's face paled, the implications hammering into him like a relentless wave. "Why didn't you tell me sooner?" His voice trembled, laced with hurt and betrayal. "We could have gone to the authorities." Ori was scared. "Okay." Claire's voice broke. "I thought I could protect you by keeping silent. But now, it seems I've only put you in more danger." The room fell silent, the storm outside raging in tandem with the storm brewing inside us. It was hard to fathom the chaos that enveloped our lives only days ago, yet now felt more like a lifetime of crushing uncertainty. In that moment, I felt the enormity of our reality crashing onto my shoulders, the weight of culpability, fear, and regret wrapping around me like a shroud. I glanced at Mr. Sterling, the shadows deepening in his expression mirrored my own internal struggle. Yet, as our eyes met, I sensed a flicker of determination buried beneath the turmoil, the slightest glint of resolve. "We don't have time to dwell on past mistakes," he finally said, his voice firm as he steadied his breathing. "We need a plan. If they're after the project and us, we have to turn the tables. I won't let fear dictate our next steps." Ethan nodded, folding his arms across his chest, a protective stance emerging as a barrier against this encroaching crisis. "Let's focus on what we know. We need to figure out who can be trusted, starting here in this room. Every bit of intel counts, and we need all of us to survive this." As the officers shifted, a renewed sense of purpose began to fill the air, illuminating the shadows that had threatened to consume us all. Claire, though shaken, appeared to agree, clutching the edge of the table as if it provided her with some reassurance. "I can still gather information, get close to the right people. I've seen enough to know their weaknesses. Just please don't shut me out. I want to help." Reluctantly, we all exchanged glances fraught with uncertainty, but the possibilities of hope suddenly felt vital, alive in a way that tangled the air with anticipation. Yet beneath it all, unease thrummed persistently, whispering that trusting Claire completely was a gamble. I had already witnessed betrayals burn, and the scarring memories warred against the hope she was offering. Just then, a loud crash rang out from the direction of the entrance, jolting us back into the reality outside our recollections. The officers exchanged wary glances, and a sense of dread rippled through the room. "It's either them or us," one officer stated, voice shaking with urgency. "We need to move out now." Claire's face paled more, the gravity of the situation finally weighing upon her. "What if they come for us first?" With that, the door burst open, and chaos erupted as shadows shifted at the entrance, dark figures rushing in, people armed with intentions we had yet to fully understand. Shouting erupted, voices rising together in an unsettling chorus as panic surged forward that I could see the terror in Claire's eyes mirrored in Mr. Sterling's expression, while Ethan instinctively moved closer, his protective nature kicking in as he pulled me behind him. "Stay together," he shouted over the tumult, his fierce gaze sweeping the room. In that moment of uncertainty, with fear clawing at the edges of reality, I could feel the fragile barriers that separated trust from betrayal starting to crumble. We were teetering on the brink of a precipice too vast to measure, and as figures poured in, I understood that in seeking clarity, we had only opened doors to further chaos. The world around us twisted and morphed as whispers of prophecy enveloped our frantic breaths, both frightening and transformative. In the eye of the storm, one thing became agonizingly clear: in a world where clarity was often obscured, survival at any cost might just make us the most dangerous players of all. And as another crash resonated around us, echoing the finality of the choices we were about to make, I was struck by one undeniable truth: the line between trust and deception is often drawn in blood, and I feared we were about to cross it together. As the chaos unfolded around us, the jarring crash of the door mingled with the rising tide of panic. My heart slammed against my ribcage, each beat reminding me of the fragility of our situation. Through the terrifying storm of confusion, I could barely distinguish the faces of the intruders. Shadows loomed larger than life, their intentions as concealed as the semblance of safety we once managed to hold dear. "Get down!" Ethan bellowed, and I crouched instinctively behind him, the warmth of his body acting as a barricade between the danger careening our way and my fragile sense of safety. My mind raced, a torrent of thoughts battling for dominance: the looming threat from Claire's disclosures, Mr. Sterling's crumbling trust, and now the tangible manifestation of terror enveloping us. From my cramped position, I stole quick glances, desperately trying not to breathe too heavy, lest I draw attention. There were at least 5 of them, clad in dark clothing, aggression radiating off their every movement. "Find them. They can't be far," one shouted, his voice slicing through the air like a knife. My gaze caught Claire, frozen in shock, her eyes darting around as if they were trying to map out an escape route that didn't exist. The weight of our collective burden bore down on her, and I felt a pang of empathy despite the storm raging between us. She was as much a pawn in this game as we were, and I realized then how easy it was for fear to shape motives. "Claire, we need you to focus," Mr. Sterling urged, snapping her out of her trance. "You know these people better than any of us. Do you recognize any of them?" She didn't respond immediately, her eyes widening as if she were still grappling with the reality of the situation. I don't know," she stammered, wringing her hands together. "They must be working for the others, the ones I overheard before. But I never saw their faces." She faltered, her voice tinged with fear and regret. "I should have done something sooner." "Enough." Ethan's voice cut through the air, authoritative yet tinged with desperation. "We have to move. Now. If they're coming for the project, they likely know about us being connected. We need to find a way out." Panic swirled in the tight confines of our hideaway, the air thick with worry. Our eyes darted to the window, the heavy rain obscuring much of what lay beyond, but offering a glimpse of the darkened street where shadows converged. I wondered silently if escape was truly possible, or if we were already too late, caught in the web of conspiracy Claire had spun for us. "Back there," Claire pointed toward a narrow hallway at the rear of the room, where darkness swallowed the light, masking our exit. "There's a service entrance. If we go now." Before she could finish, another crash rang out, the shadows at the door practically pulsating with urgency. "They're not just here for show. We need to hurry." I didn't wait for the nods of agreement. I followed Claire, my heart thrumming a steady rhythm of fear and adrenaline. We slipped into the hallway, the dampness clinging to our skin as we raced toward the unknown. The distance between us and the chaotic shouts of the intruders echoed, a haunting reminder of how quickly safety could dissolve. Suddenly, Ethan gripped my arm. "Wait," he whispered, urgency compelling him to stop. "We can't just run blind. If they're waiting out there." He was right. All sense of direction fled as I directed my attention toward the narrow path ahead. The darkness was engulfing yet strangely inviting. If we could just make it out, find a safe place to regroup, then we might just have a fighting chance. Claire led the way, her steps faltering but resilient. As our group rounded the corner and into the abyss of the hallway, Claire paused, her breath ragged. "We need to trust one another, even if it feels impossible right now," she spoke softly, her vulnerability apparent. "If we're going to survive this, we have to believe." The sound of footsteps thudded behind us, confirming our fears were not unfounded. "They're right behind us." Gripping Ethan's hand, I felt the surge of anxiety. "Choke any rational thought. Go." I yelled, pushing forward, forcing my adrenaline to override the instinct to freeze in terror. As we barreled through, plunging into the darkness, Claire's glance back revealed the fear that mirrored my own, a bond building through shared turmoil. Somewhere in this madness, I began to understand that survival hinged not solely on deception and trust but on a recognition of our shared traumas. Just when it seemed we found a rhythm, the fluorescent light of the service entrance flickered, and a sound trickled through the gloom, reverberating against our pounding hearts. I froze, staring at the door as recognition flooded my system. An unmistakable voice emerged, weaving a chilling current through my veins. "Claire, you know what to do, don't you? We're all waiting for you." The voice was familiar, sending shockwaves through my consciousness. It belonged to someone I thought was a friend. My heart sank as the realization clenched tighter. This was more than just about the project, this was personal. "Claire, let's keep moving," Ethan pleaded, his urgency snapping me from my daze. But I couldn't. I had to know. The echoes of betrayal seeped into every crevice of my mind, warping our already fragile alliance. My instincts screamed at me, but the pull toward that voice was undeniable. "Claire," I whispered, my voice trembling, "who are they waiting for?" She turned, her face pale yet resolute. Some secrets are meant to stay buried. With those words, I felt a new layer of dread enveloping me. A decision loomed before us, one that hadn't just been born from this chaotic moment but from the shadows that existed long before our paths intertwined. And as fear pooled in my stomach, I was left teetering on the precipice of choice, knowing full well that whatever lay ahead might fracture us all irrevocably. In the dim light of the service corridor, the air was thick with apprehension, the darkness pressing in like a shroud as Claire faced the unseen adversaries lurking behind that door. My heart raced. The weight of our struggle felt insurmountable, every decision fraught with the potential for ruin, and yet something deep within urged me to stay anchored in the moment, to confront whatever storm had seized our lives. "Claire, you can't let them manipulate you," I urged, willing her to see the truth standing before us. "We've come too far to lose ourselves now." Her eyes flickered with uncertainty, the shadows dancing across her face illuminated only by the faint glow from the emergency exit sign. "You don't understand," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "They know things. If I don't handle this, people I care about will suffer." "Handle what, exactly?" Ethan interjected, his tone laced with irritation. "Playing their game won't protect anyone." With each second, the tension mounted, anticipation curling around us, tightening like a noose. I could feel Mr. Sterling's hand find mine, infusing me with strength rather than fear. "Listen," Mr. Sterling said, his voice steady. "We have to decide who we are facing. If there is betrayal, it's either now or never. Do not let fear dictate our path." A silence fell, thick as fog enveloping our shared uncertainty. Claire's gaze darted to the door, and for a moment, we stood at the edge of an abyss, the stakes higher than ever before. "I will not turn against you," her voice trembled, "but if they do come for me they will come for all of us," I insisted, stepping closer, urgency coursing through me. "If we don't trust each other now, we stand no chance. We must confront this together. Claire looked between us, a dawning comprehension etched upon her features. Okay, she relented, her voice filled with a steely resolve. But we have to move now. As we turned to escape down the corridor, the ominous voice hauntingly drifted closer. Claire, this ends tonight. We both know too much. That proclamation kicked in my survival instincts like adrenaline racing through my veins. I pushed forward, the adrenaline expanding my lungs as I steered us deeper into the shadows, each step resonating with the weight of our newfound purpose. The flickering exit loomed closer, a whisper of hope guiding us toward the light. The faint echoes of footsteps trailed behind us, now mingling with shouts echoing through the hallways. They're coming. We won't let them win. Ethan's urgency bolstered my resolve, driving me faster towards sanctuary. Above all else, we have to stick together, Mr. Sterling affirmed, glancing over his shoulder as we reached the end of the corridor, his determination brightening the atmosphere despite the encroaching dread. Suddenly, the door rumbled open, and harsh lights flooded the area. My breath caught in my chest as shadows morphed into familiar forms. Jess appeared at the entrance, fierce determination in her eyes. Get out. Now. I barely registered Claire's alarmed gasp as I instinctively lunged through the doorway, pulling Mr. Sterling along beside me. The moment was surreal, the world shifting around us as Jess handed us each a coat, her presence laced with urgency. No time to explain. We need to go now. They're closing in. All semblance of realization faded as we followed Jess into the chaotic night, the fog thickening around us. Up ahead, a slick car awaited, its windows tinted in secrecy. The sound of sirens echoed through the distance, threatening to swallow us whole. Get in. Jess shouted, her voice a beacon in a gathering storm. As we piled in, I caught sight of Claire's expression, a mix of fear and surprise as she contemplated what was unwinding around us. I didn't realize you were connected right now. It doesn't matter, Mr. Sterling grounded her, his voice steady. What's important is that we get out of here. Just as Jess shifted the car into gear, a flash of lights illuminated the rearview mirror, threatening shadows forming behind us. They're following. The car surged forward, our moment of reprieve giving way to the gravity of our choices. We barreled down the winding roads, the tension coiling around us like a viper ready to sink its fangs into our futures. What did you find out, Jess? I asked, urgency pouring into every syllable. I was able to lure them away from the main investigation, she said, her focus unwavering. But they're smarter than we thought. We're not out of the woods yet. Somewhere in the chaos, as adrenaline coursed through my veins, I saw that glimmer of hope, the possibility that unity could emerge from the debris. Yet the hour of reckoning was fast approaching, the perilous surgery of truth and deception further pressed against the walls we had built around our hearts. As we turned onto a darker road, shadows whispered tales of betrayal from behind, but something else pulsed beneath the torment, a shared desire for freedom from forces that sought to stifle our very existence. Panic receded slightly as the distance stretched between us and our pursuers. Exhaustion began to crawl into my bones as the reality of everything settled. We hadn't just escaped the threats surrounding us, we were forced into a new reality defined by uncertainty, where connection danced on a precipice of survival. Then, Jess abruptly stopped the car, its sudden halt mirroring my racing heart. Listen, we're going off-grid. We need to lay low while we figure this out. What do we do now? Claire asked, a tremor threading through her voice. Mr. Sterling turned to face each of us, a determination lighting in his eyes. We refocus and reclaim our lives. We look for the person manipulating us, and we find a way to turn the tides. Each of us nodded, the mutual understanding binding us together like a thin thread, promising that perhaps hope still glimmered within this tempest. The weight of decision stirred deep within my chest, and before the weight could crush me entirely, a surge of clarity filled the void left by chaos. In unity, we could conquer any enemy. And as I glanced out the window, witnessing the encroaching darkness of betrayal, I was reminded that even threats born from shadow could not extinguish the light of our resolve. Tonight, we fight together, I declared, my voice steadying the tumult that brewed within. And so began our next chapter, framed not just by longing or fear, but a renewed sense of purpose that promised to shield us from the relentless storm pursuing us in the night that in the depths of uncertainty. The path ahead was shrouded in doubt, but within each trembling heart, we were no longer adrift in despair, we were warriors united in a battle for a life worth fighting for. And as the engine of the car rumbled beneath me, I understood that we were not just fleeing the past, we were embracing a future crafted by our own hands. Still, life has a way of revealing the truth when we least expect it. Just as we prepared to take the next step, a message pinged on my phone, a haunting text from Jessica that would shatter everything we had just rebuilt. I know everything. Meet me where this all began. I'm living a lie, and it's much deeper than you think. My heart raced as another choice loomed before us, the double-edged sword of trust whispering that it was time once more to confront the ghosts that might threaten to destroy us. And in that remix of fear and hope, I realized perhaps the most profound truth of all: fragmentation could birth a unity that honed into a blade ready to cut through the shadows. This time, we wouldn't face the storm apart. In that moment, we held each other's gazes, anchored by the understanding simmering in the still air. Together, we would rise through the darkness. And together, we would unearth the truth. For love, once ignited, can become our fiercest weapon against the unknown, a blazing fire ready to light the way.